program today we have Lee Welter, Sacramento physician, John Cameron, author of Rewire and Rekill, and we, well, a couple of us watched the second CNN town hall debate or a presentation with Gary Johnson and Bill Weld last night with Anderson Cooper, and John, I thought it was a better presentation than the first.
I didn't see the first one.
CNN
I'm sorry
town
to
hall.
say I did not see the first one.
First one, they were a little bit awkward. They're a little more polished this time.
A little more polished. Still not. They still need some handlers. I think Gary needs handlers more than Bill.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, Bill Weld strayed from libertarian orthodoxy in a couple of ways on foreign policy, that sort of thing. He was a little bit more hawkish than most hardcore libertarians would prefer.
Was he talking about using drones? Or was that Gary that talked about using?
Well, yeah, I missed
the first part.
Yeah, I think they, said that might play a role, but obviously, I mean, they're not the drone in chief that Obama is, or that Hillary would continue to be.
Reminds me of the joke we were watching the joke where looked like it was a roast for Obama. And a black comedian was up, and Obama was smiling, and the black comedian turned to the audience and said, Mr. President, you've been hanging out with all these athletes, these basketball players, and you seem to be especially bonding with Stephen Curry from the Golden State Warriors, and that makes sense because both of you like dropping bombs from a long distance on people, and he said, "Am I right?" And am I right? And the audience laughed, kind of like, and you see this picture of Obama, and he's, as if anybody in the audience doesn't know, Stephen Curry's a wonderful 3-point shooter, which is they call those bombs from a distance, and still, if you haven't ever looked at TV or been on the internet, the guy that we elected president likes killing civilians with the occasional terrorist.
You don't have to explain the joke, John, but if you want to, you can. Anyway.
But even then,
it's pretty fun.
It's easy to criticize a libertarian candidate because it is very difficult, if not impossible, to be an ideal libertarian. For one reason, libertarians just love arguing among themselves about
we don't.
minute things. Yes, we do.
Somebody once told me that if you want to have a presentation to non-libertarians, by libertarians, make sure that only one libertarian is doing the presentation, otherwise it'll turn into an argument.
Herding cats is the term that's often used.
Exactly, yeah. But in any case, they did a good job of presenting a sane, adult in the room kind of persona, I thought, that is in stark contrast to certainly to Donald Trump and even to Hillary Clinton, and that consisted, of course, of being reluctant to get involved in other countries' wars, being hands-off and tolerant and accepting of other people's social choices. They made that point very well. A black woman asked the question about Black Lives Matter, and I thought that Gary handled it as just absolutely superbly. He said, "This is an issue that I have just now in the last few months learned about, and it's something that is obviously extremely important, extremely serious." And
he teared up.
Yeah, I mean, he was genuine.
He teared up.
He was genuine, and you could tell that the woman who asked the question was sold on Gary Johnson. And the audience were people who were either for Johnson and Weld or undecided, leaning to one way or the other, but undecided. So it was independents, undecided, and libertarians. And so it was a good group of people, and the questioning by Anderson Cooper tended to stray off into the nonsense questions like, would you bake a Nazi cake for a Jewish wedding, or whatever the heck that question is, whether you bake a cake
The
whether somebody,
divisiveness game.
yeah, the not
Well,
the
divisiveness
the hypotheticals
It
that'll never
allows you to
happen.
take power.
Especially if you're one of the politicians who wants to play one group off against another group.
Yeah,
And there's
I
plenty
mean,
of that going on.
And Gary has taken a sensible position. It comes down to the mini controversy that arose when a baker didn't want to bake a cake for a gay wedding. Okay, and there's a law against that, I guess. It's probably not a real good law. I mean, if you really think about it, anybody that wants to get married, they can find somebody to bake a cake for them.
Well, of course,
But-
that's the free market, but we can't allow that.
If there's a law against it, that's not a hill to die on for a libertarian presidential
Right.
candidate, and Gary's not going to step on that.
Don't fall on your
Not gonna-
sword on that one.
Not going to step into that thing, and rightly he's not going to. It's really really low on the list of priorities for a Republican or for a libertarian president. So the Gary Johnson, Bill Weld campaign has had problems with hardcore conservatives and hardcore libertarians. Bill Weld has been a little bit soft on gun control. Back when he was governor of Massachusetts, he entertained some gun control questions. And even now, he's saying that terrorists should not have access to guns. And
But who makes that decision?
Exactly,
Some people
exactly.
consider libertarians to be terrorists because
exactly.
they don't go along with the
there's
status quo.
there's a directive out by I'm not sure if it's by the administration or some federal agency saying that the "Don't Tread on Me" flag is a symbol of terrorism. I kid you not. They're looking at the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, the rattlesnake flag,
Oh, yes.
the Gadsden flag, as
Yes.
being something that you need to watch out for.
And the Culpeper
Well,
flag.
you know that flag, it's got stripes and stars on it, and it's red, white, and blue. Those guys were some radicals.
Well,
I
they
mean,
were,
they
yeah.
believed in
they were
property.
pirates. They were tobacco growers.
Oh, man. But I thought one of back to the town hall, I think Johnson presented something elegantly, and this is the first time I'd heard him present it. I'd heard other people present it. He said, well, people who vote for Republicans for the idea that Republicans stood for, although they no longer stand for, which is fiscal restraint, should vote for a libertarian, and people who vote Democratic because the Democratic Party used to stand for civil liberty, and it does no longer, should vote libertarian. So the two principles that were supposed to be the cornerstones of both of those platforms, at least recently, fiscal responsibility on the part of the Republican Party and civil liberties on the part of the Democratic Party, are both being smothered by the parties that claimed them originally, and the Libertarian Party can carry both of those flags. So I think he said it much more elegantly than I just did. And, and he was asked a question by somebody who said they were a Bernie voter, and what do you think of Bernie? He said, I agree with Bernie on this, this, and this, and we're 72% in alignment. What I don't agree with is his solution to economic inequality. You can never create economic equality. What you can create is equal access,
equality of opportunity.
equality of opportunity, and that's where Sanders and I disagree, and it's a pretty important disagreement. But on this,
on foreign policy,
on foreign policy,
legalizing
civil liberties,
marijuana, all
even
of
gun
the civil,
control. He didn't mention it, but even
yeah.
gun control.
I have a little shtick. I've heard people say, well, but we really need to have wealth redistribution because there's the very rich and there's the very poor. However,
there is an argument about that I think should appeal to the left as well as to the right, and that's the crony capitalist argument and the Federal Reserve banking
those are
control
problems. No question.
control
Well, I'm
control
still
of the
would like-
economic system argument.
Change Change it to
And what
crony
you've got-
socialism. It's
Well,
not crony
fine, that's fine.
capitalism. It's crony
What you've
socialism.
got, in any case, is you've got a system where the banking system and the money that we create. Now, money is a price signal, or money should be information.
Yeah,
If interest
but-
rates go up, that means the money is scarce. If interest rates go down, that means the money is freely available. It should be should have information. Price should convey information. When you've got a Federal Reserve System and a German, the Euro Bank and the Japanese Central Bank and the Chinese Central Bank, when they're all conspiring to completely inflate the money supply of all currencies all at once, the information that's available given by prices no longer exists. And you end up with the money, all of this newly created money, newly lent money, has to go somewhere. Where does it go?
To the privileged few.
It goes to people who have sterling credit ratings.
Yes.
It goes to the rich.
The big
The
bankers.
rich use it to invest in assets. That's why we have a stock market bubble, a bond market bubble, a a real estate bubble. Everything is bubbling at the same time. Something's wrong with this picture. And
No
what's
question
wrong
about
with
it.
this
Sounds like
picture?
gas to me.
What's wrong with this picture is new money is being created by the central banks all over the world. It's going into the credit accounts of the rich. They're using it to invest in assets and getting richer and richer and richer. That's what's causing the huge dichotomy between the 1% or the 1/10 of 1% and the 99%. That's what's causing the problem. Not one person in 10,000 among the left really understands that dynamic. And if someone is
they
able
do
to...
understand it. They're
They understand.
profiting by it and don't
No,
want
no,
to
no,
talk
no.
about
I'm talking about the proletariat. I'm talking about the poor, the people who are in the 99%. The people who are trying to, trying
They don't have a
to,
clue.
trying to make a living, trying to hold down a job, trying to get a job. Those are the people. They don't understand what's going on. They just know something's wrong. That's why you've got this great populist revolt in favor of Bernie Sanders and in favor of Donald Trump. They're both drawing from the same.
it. You want to say Donald Duck. When you
the
say
sa-
Donald, I want to put Duck in.
But
Go
there
ahead.
is-
the same pool.
There is one form of wealth distribution that I consider very legitimate. That's when I consider that the goods or services you're providing or offering to me are worth more to me than the price that you're demanding. And since you have a surplus of the goods and services, my money is worth more to you than the goods or services that we're exchanging. It's a mutual exchange, the free market, and we both benefit, right?
And that's a redistribution of wealth that happens all the time. There's another leg to the stool you're talking about of the people not understanding the funny money, and that's the fact that the concept that up until government started printing fiat currency at the speed that they're printing it now held true.
And printing
And
is a
is-
misnomer because what they're actually doing is increasing credit, but go on.
So, and that truism is that wealth is up until the point where they started running the printing presses or
Creating credit.
Creating credit. Is that wealth is created. Wealth is created, and people who want to create a division between classes talk about the pie is unevenly divided, and by simplifying the economy to a pie has a boundary. This is a pie. And so people are, you can't see it. So never mind my stupid drawing.
You got 6 or 8 slices.
So you've got 6 or 8 slices or 12 or 14, but there's one pie. But what people don't understand is that in a free market society, that pie can reproduce and create other pie. It's a breeding pie. And that concept is not taught. It's not taught in schools. It's not taught in colleges. The creation of wealth. And whenever anybody starts talking about the rich and they took something from one person to give it to another, I always ask them, where did Stephen Jobs find that iPhone? The one that he stole and took from whoever it was that had it. Where did he find that iPhone? And it stops them right in their tracks because they understand that iPhone is a creation, and that technology,
that.
the creation of technology, created tremendous real wealth for lots of people because it provided you with information at your fingertips that
Tremendous
presidents didn't have 20 years ago with all the things at their resources.
The presidential campaign, of course, Gary Johnson trying to get into the duopoly, into the Republican and Democratic stranglehold on the presidential
Yes.
races, as well as all of the down ballot races. One of the problems they're running up against is the inherent belief in the duopoly, in the two-party system that Americans have. Now, in Europe, you don't have a duopoly. You've got
Because you have
6 or 8 or
parliamentary
10,
governments.
10 parties
Yeah.
in all of these countries because they're parliaments
healthier.
as opposed to the kind of system that we have. Now, with the Republicans seemingly self-destructing under Donald Trump,
Maybe that.
and with a very damaged and very distrusted and legitimately called crooked candidate in Hillary Clinton, is there a possibility
You're giving a
for
bad name to crooked.
is there a possibility of a breakthrough for Gary Johnson in the sense that people today realize that we're looking at two really, really, really damaged and really, really, really bad candidates from the Democratic and the Republican side? And we've got a couple of governors for vice president and for president running as libertarians who used to be Republican governors in Democratic states who don't engage in the kind of name-calling, mudslinging, character assassination politics that both Trump and Hillary engage in. They're the adults in the room, obviously the adults in the room. Is this the year there could be a breakthrough?
Well, it's a possibility, and it's a possibility that nobody's going to win a majority, and there's a mechanism to deal with that. But
Called throwing it into the House.
that wouldn't be such a bad thing. And I could add that I saw one of the debates among the Libertarian candidates who appeared at the Libertarian Party of California convention. To me, any of those four would have been a very good presidential candidate. There's John McAfee, Austin Peterson, Mark Allen Feldman, physician, who's now dead, unfortunately,
Passed away,
and
yeah.
Gary Johnson. And Gary Johnson was my choice because I had met him 4 years previously, and he's a real down-to-earth guy, very easy to talk to, self-effacing, pleasant, amazing athlete. He's climbed the highest peak in every continent.
Mount Everest while recovering from a broken leg. Anyway.
Well, and this brings up a point that doesn't get mentioned a lot, but the job of president in the United States is a hard job. And you have to have, there's a quality of human beings, of human nature that's not talked about very often, and that's the quality of toughness. And it becomes very apparent in a fight that you can have strength and you can have youth and you can have vigor and you can have training and all the rest of that. But the last man standing has a quality of toughness. And Johnson, even though he's soft-spoken, has a quality of toughness.
No question of it.
And both of them, Weld's toughness is he's mentally tough. But I think there's no doubt they are the adults in the room. And if they can just, let's say they don't win this time.
They
then,
have elevated the level of visibility.
They're getting more free publicity now by a factor of 2 or 3
At least.
than they got
20 or 30
than,
Yeah.
than 2012.
than 2012. An alternative to what I call it a one-party system. I think it is the same party with 2 different names. It's like, and I know you guys probably get bored with me saying this, but the Cardinals used to argue over how many angels could dance on the head of a pin, and except for on 2 litmus test areas. And the major one that sways voters is right to life or pro-choice, whatever you want to call it. The Democrats and Republicans are the same beast.
Well, yeah.
Same beast.
in many ways.
Yeah.
And I could elaborate a little on that. There's a book written by Lawrence Lindsay.
Yeah, I told you read too much.
I know I do, but I love it. And he mentioned several points in this book of various surveys that make it obvious that roughly 2/3 of our population, 65% or so, adhere and value libertarian principles.
Their core beliefs line up more
Exactly,
with
with
libertarian
libertarians
than they do with Republican.
But that's not the status quo, and people just fall for that. They accept it. They are obedient. They're sheep's being herded by the wolves into the zoo, so to speak.
Now, assuming that Trump is not in collusion with Hillary doing the producers redo, what he seems to be doing more than anything else, if he's serious, and I question whether he's serious, is channeling the Nixon 1968 campaign, which was nativist, hard on, go after the criminals. It was basically a fear-based campaign. We need to go after all of those hippies that are protesting against the Vietnam War.
Crazy.
Yeah, we're hearing the same kind of fear-based campaigning on the part of Trump. Build the wall, fry the Arabs in Syria.
Carpet bombing, disgusting.
Yeah, just all of these.
He probably doesn't realize it. He thinks carpet bombing is what you do to kill insects in his wool carpets in his penthouse. Probably doesn't understand.
But whatever. We're looking at a very fear-based campaign. The pundits call it, the Republican convention dark. It was, and Hillary is just doing whatever she needs to do in order to not make a mistake, and making a whole lot of them anyway. Making a lot of them anyway, but she's not doing very many public appearances. Whenever she does do a public appearance, not very many people come, and it's really kind of embarrassing. But is Nixon redo from 1968? Is that going to work in 2016? Have people? I remember that. I remember those times. I'm old enough. But am I the outlier there?
If people fall for it, it will work. But it's very disappointing to me because there are so many fallacies that are commonly accepted. For example, the business about immigrants coming here,
taking our jobs,
stealing our jobs, and using our welfare and sending all the money back to Mexico. It's
people,
not true.
People forget that every time an immigrant comes to this country and takes a job, they're also spending money, which creates a job for somebody else.
Absolutely.
And Johnson was elegant in that and said that we are a nation of immigrants, and immigrants come here to better themselves, and their immigrants have built this country. And work hard.
And the thing is, except for a hardcore group of nativists who are probably nativists because they're not very talented in keeping a job for a variety of reasons. Other than that, maybe 30-40% of the population that are nativists. Most people in this country are in favor of open legal immigration, and the trick is making almost all immigration legal. Get rid of that distinction.
Making it fair and requiring that people have the inclination to become real American citizens and not just.
Well, requiring that they work.
Or they do something productive.
Requiring that they not become part of the welfare rolls.
In France, they are the French are much more honest about the melting pot that is France, and they by law prevent the kind of I would almost say ghettos, the kind of it's the black culture, it's Latino culture, it's the Native American culture. In France, you become French if you move to France. Part of that is accepting French culture and giving up the veil if you are if you're a Muslim woman. And I'm not saying we need laws like that, but what our politicians do.
Yeah, given the truck bomb or the truck weapon in Nice and the cartoon massacre in Paris, I'm not sure it's all working out all that well.
Well,
for them.
and that's
France's colonial history.
Well, yeah, France's colonial history is about like ours with our Native American population.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that our politicians take the opposite tact to create a divisive culture so that they can prey on the fear that
Yes,
you're
indeed.
talking about.
Yes, indeed.
If you are made to feel as if you are a victim, then you can demand special treatment. And if you can be the person who's helping the victim, then you can take advantage and slush off the funds that are supposed to go to the victim. And so our politicians have taken a different tack by increasing that feeling of divisiveness and difference amongst people. And the
using,
French have legislated against it, which I think is wrong.
and using affirmative action, giving those who are perceived to have had problems a leg up. Which brings up, is Hillary the affirmative action candidate? She's being billed as the person with the most smarts, the most experience, the most qualified person in the world to be president, the smartest woman in the room. I didn't realize this until just recently, but she actually flunked the D.C. bar exam back after she got out of law school, out of Yale Law School, by the way, and ended up going to Arkansas because the Arkansas bar was a bit easier to pass, as well as that's where Bill ended up going.
Oh, that's because they take it in crayon. No, I'm being mean to people in Arkansas.
So-
I shouldn't be.
so is-
Salt of
so
the
that-
earth
I-
folks
my-
there.
my question
Why
around-
did you let the Clintons come into your state?
My question remains, we're talking about a person who is reputed to be really, really smart and capable and so on. Is she not so smart?
Well, she's clever. Let's put it this way.
True.
Her two biggest qualifications are, number one, she's a woman, and she broke the glass ceiling by becoming a candidate for the presidency as a woman. Don't think that's happened before. Number two, she's a victim. Look at her philandering husband, and she had to try to cover up for him, and don't you identify and feel sorry for her under those
So
circumstances?
if you vote against someone because of their race, you're a racist. If you vote against someone because of their sex, you're a sexist.
But if you vote
So
for them for
if
those
you
same
vote-
reasons, you're still a racist or a sexist,
That's
right?
the point I was making, Lee. If you make a decision either for or against based on race, you're a racist. If you make a decision for or against based on sex, you're a sexist. So those who vote for Hillary Clinton because of her sex are sexist.
Yes.
Just as those who voted for Barack Obama because of his race are racist. And I think that we're trying to get past racism and sexism in this country to equality. So let's vote
Equality
for
Equal
of
opportunity.
Let's vote for the strongest candidates who have the best track records of governance in a divided country, which is what they're going to inherit. And that would be Johnson and Weld.
Two successful Republican governors in majority Democrat states can't do better than that. That's the show. We'll see you again next week, same time, same place, on YouTube, on accesssacramento.org, and on Channel 17 in Sacramento. Thank you very much for being part of the show.
Terrific.
Thank you for letting
Thank you,
in the
John.
door,
Richard.
Richard. Appreciate it.